So Claire Kay,
Hello.
thank you for spending time with me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I appreciate it very, very much. So for the audience, I just wanted to introduce you. Claire is a writer, producer, and content director, and a graduate of USC School of Cinematic Arts. Um, I'm excited to talk to her because she started a podcast just recently called 2020 Psych with her father, Michael Hernandez, who's a double board certified psychiatrist on the topics of mental health, stress related to COVID, and the dangers of popular self diagnosis among young people that's happening right now. So this is really exciting. I mean, this is kind of cool and timely. And um, tell me a little bit about how this came to you wanting to create something like this.
Well, after graduating USC or before graduating USC, I came home because of COVID and I was stuck in the house. I was fortunate enough to be able to have a place to come back to. My parents were, told me to come home. And so it just started with my father and I were just talking a lot more because I was home. We were having intense conversations about what's going on in the world, COVID, how our government has handled COVID. And it got to a point where we were just like, you know what? I think other people should hear these conversations. And, I'd like to think my dad's extremely smart and very insightful. So I was just like, I think people would want to hear what a psychiatrist would have to say about the matter. But then also, mental health in general is just a topic that is getting a lot more traction now in terms of conversation, but it's not. I want to say that the conversation can kind of be diluted at times and not as poignant as it could be. So I wanted to get a space together where my peers could ask me or anyone, any listener could tune in and ask questions about bipolar disorder, depression, cannabis use, anything along the sort, to kind of get that insight from a psychiatrist who sees it every day and deals with it and has been dealing with it for the past 30 years.
That's amazing. And I know your dad and I know your family, and he's a rock star and a really kind, soft, gentle guy and super smart. So it's quite the benefit to be able to have those one-on-ones with him. And it's I imagine it must have been interesting too to watch him go through that because I mean I know you and you've had friends very close to you that have struggled and so that has a reaction to you too, and so you're left to sort of
Yeah.
deal with how to process those things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like because of the field that my dad is in, mental health, my whole life, mental illness, mental health has kind of been very relevant to me. And it's something that's always been in the conversation. And it wasn't until I, went to school, such as USC, where I realized that there's talk, but no one really, it's still taboo in a sense. And so I just felt that it'd be interesting to get the perspective of me, a Gen Z, or I guess some might call me a zillennial, maybe. Um, I felt like it'd be interesting to get me, a zillennial, in a room with my dad, who's a baby boomer, completely different generations, and talk about some very real topics. Because, like you said, like I've had my own personal qualms with mental health, and I've had friends very much affected by it, and I feel like everyone can has either experienced something themselves or has known someone that has experienced some aspect of mental illness or mental health. So it was definitely something that I felt was relevant and that I wanted to just bring awareness to in a more, because I can criticize other content creators or people in the industry that are trying to have these conversations. I can do that, but it came to a point where I was like, well, let me just say what I want to say and structure it in a way that I want it to be structured. And I think that's something that's great about creating content right now is you can put out whatever you want and make it exactly how you want it to be for free, and no one's going to tell you no one's going to tell you you can't do that. So that's kind of where the inspiration came from.
It must be, it's super interesting because, listening to these, it's almost like the perfect format because you can sit there and say, this is what my friends are saying, this is what I'm experiencing, and then bounce that off a professional, really makes a whole package. It really makes a great rounded conversation, because there's just so many, bumper sticker, Lululemon style, care for yourself and love yourself and things like that. But the devil's in the
Right.
details. And if people are lost, those quick little, coffee mug sayings are kind of empty. So it's really like, I appreciate you, having those conversations and diving in deep because it almost has to be a ugly conversation before it can be a better one.
Yeah, and I don't claim to know everything about mental health or mental illness. I definitely don't. My dad's been practicing in the mental health field longer than I've been alive. So one of the things I've loved about this process is one, my dad and I have gotten extremely close naturally from, having to come together each week and discuss, okay, what are we going to talk about? What do we want to say? What question should I ask you? But so I don't know much. I think I'd like to think that I know a fair amount, but I'm not an expert and I don't claim to be. And that's why I really love my dad because I could say something or assume something and he's going to correct me. He'd be like, "Well, actually, that's not true. This is the fact. This is what I see in my patient population and this is what I can attest to." And so that's why I'm really glad I got my dad out of his comfort zone as well because,
That's cool.
he's just been a doctor his whole majority of his life. Like he's never been in a had a platform where he has to speak consistently to an audience. He's just talking to patients and his nursing managers and stuff like that. So it's been really cool to see him kind of blossom and become more opinionated and more firm in what he thinks and what he believes because he's had this knowledge for so long and I think it's important for him to talk about it because how else will he leave behind a legacy of this is how I practiced when I was a psychiatrist.
That's really amazing. That's really incredible. That's cool. And he's got a great tone, and you can just feel really safe just listening to him. And so it must be easy. You're lucky to be able to have that environment where you could really speak openly. I'm sure that there's a father daughter dynamic, that might present some barriers. But when you listen to the podcast, it sounds like there's a definite love and mutual respect between you two, and that really comes through. And I think that's really important. So,
Oh, thank you.
um, very well done.
Thank
what
you.
what in the process? What has surprised you? Is there anything that in the process of doing that sort of things that came up or the direction it went that sort of surprised you?
Um, Something that surprised me. Maybe the fact that um that's a good question. I think what surprised me was how both my dad and I are learning from each other mutually. He's learning from me in terms of how to speak on a platform and express his voice and all that and be present on mic and sound like he's present and not be so soft spoken. And I've learned from him based off of all the things that he talks about and having to ask a double board certified psychiatrist questions each week and not sound like an idiot is kind of hard. And so for me, there was a lot of pressure because, like, I don't want to sound, for lack of a better word, I don't want to sound stupid in front of my dad. Like, he paid for my college tuition. Like, I would think he would want me to present myself a bit eloquently. So, I think what surprised me was how much we learned from each other and how much like we would both get nervous for different reasons and but we would still show up and sit down and be okay, let's record, let's do this.
I love it. That's super cool. I love that. And in the process of asking questions, you probably have found tools to sort of, um, guide your own journey and strengthen your own inner voice.
Yeah, one thing I've really liked is that my friends will randomly hit me up like, hey, I just listened to social media and cannabis use disorder episode, and I didn't know this and this and this, and thank you, like, this is great. I'm gonna share this. Like, for me, that's been really cool because I'm just doing this because, like I said, I just want to bring awareness, and if that means it's hitting my friend a few miles away and they're really resonating with it, that for me that's worth it. Like, that's why I'm
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that's a good segue because I was going to ask you what has been sort of the audience response, your friends and people listening.
I've gotten I would say it's overall really good.
Hmm.
Um I I yeah, I think it's good. I try not
Hmm.
to get too caught up on the numbers and the reach because like I said, if it's hitting two or three really good friends and it's really sticking with them, then that's what really matters to me. If we can save, like, we had an episode on like World Suicide Prevention Day, and I had a few friends reach out to me after that episode and say, hey, like, I didn't know that this resource was available. Thank you for letting me know, and or thanks for making me not feel so alone. And that was just like really rewarding in and of itself, and made me feel like, okay, like, yeah, there's a reason why I do this outside of my own personal agenda. Like, it's for people to receive in a positive way. And that's what I kind of hope when people listen, is that it's not, I would hope that people don't feel like we're trying to preach to them of like, well, this is this and that is that and that's wrong and this is right. I hope that people can just receive the information and either say, oh, I didn't know that, or oh, I'm gonna look into that, or and so it's definitely a judgment free zone, and I hope
Yeah,
that it comes across that way.
I think it definitely does. And, it really does sound like a conversation between two people that are exploring, the world a little bit. And so, you guys aren't really, you're not, just like you said, it doesn't feel like anybody's preaching or making hard statements. You're coming across saying, this is my experience. What do you think? And then your dad is bringing, all that experience to it, which is really neat. Um, and do you have sort of longer term goals with it? Or are you just kind of like, just kind of building them and seeing how they go? Or do you have a vision for it becoming something else?
Yeah, for right now, I think my dad and I like the setup we have, just recording each week and putting out an episode. I definitely want to get more involved in like marketing it a bit more
Hmm.
aggressively, because right now I'm just recording, editing, and then uploading it and then posting it on my Instagram story like, hey, just did this. But I think I would love to explore the realm of like TikTok, and because actually this is an interesting conversation, because what I've noticed on TikTok is it's a lot of chatter, a lot of
Hmm.
experts saying this,
Yeah.
that, and the other thing,
Yeah.
and they're getting hundreds of thousands of views seemingly, and are they qualified to even talk about the information that they're giving? I don't know. So
Yeah.
I would, right now, I think for near future, I would love to I ideate some type of TikTok campaign, TikTok videos that my dad and I can do, even if it's just
Hmm.
like my dad getting on camera and saying a
Hmm.
few things, because that seems to be the quickest way to reach people now.
Hmm.
And if we can grow the audience that way, that'd be great. Because, like I said, the goal is for people to listen and get something out of it. So if I can increase that through TikTok, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I think that there's a lot of interesting things happening there where, it's not everybody's on a skateboard with cranberry juice. There's a lot of different things happening. So,
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. I think there's definitely a home there for you. It's just, figuring out the format that, could people could reach it and absorb it. That's a good
yeah,
idea. Um,
definitely.
That's very cool. And then, you and I know each other because I was at SC when you went through SC, and,
Hmm.
I knew you in high school and went through SC and graduated. And then, you were robbed of this great graduation because COVID hit, and then you were just basically sent home to sit. And,
Yeah.
this podcast came out of that, and that's beautiful. But that must have been really, really tough. I mean, I don't. there's a whole ocean of people, students, young people that came out, and that was their experience. And I've never seen anything like that. I can't even like, oh, it'll get better, or I can't say
Yeah.
things like I understand, because none of us ever saw anything like this. So first of all, I'm sorry that happened to you, but what was that like? Going through all that.
Definitely a shell shock right off the bat. And there is some comfort in, like you said, like it wasn't just me that happened to. It was nationwide. Grad seniors, undergrad seniors all experienced the same thing I did. So there is kind of some comfort in that, to know that like I wasn't alone in the
Yeah,
takedown. But
yeah,
on a personal level, it was really, really shocking and
yeah.
really hard to adjust. You know, before lockdown, I had two internships, a job, I was in 18 units. I was producing on the side, and I was still managing to hang out with friends and go out. Like, I was a busy person and I loved
Living the
it.
life.
Yeah, you're at USC, you're a senior, you're in film school. Like nothing really gets better than that, I would
No.
say. So to have that abruptly end, it like I said, it was a shell shock, and you went through some grief, obvious, rightfully so, of just like, wow, like there's some people I didn't even get to say bye to that are now in a
Wow.
different country that
Wow.
who knows if I'll ever see them again.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll
Yeah.
travel down a few years from now and be able to see old friends, but it was a lot to process, and it definitely wasn't the ending I imagined. No one imagined, but it made me. It made I would say I liked it. I found a silver lining in it, in the sense that it made me reflect on, okay, this institution gave me XYZ, all these tools, all of these connections, these mentors, and okay, what am I going to do with that now? I have a full plate of all these amazing resources, and what am I going to do? And so it made me think hard about the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years of like, where do I see myself? What do I want to do? What kind of people do I want to work with? What kind of projects do I want to be on? And so in that sense, there was a silver lining, that it gave me more introspection to my career, the longevity of it. But yeah, it wasn't. My first reaction was it wasn't fun.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's as this was happening, all I could think, and you inspired me, because I was thinking about podcasting and vlogging more and things like that, and then you started doing it. I'm like, oh man, you were sort of the impetus for me to sort of get in gear and start creating content. And I kept just thinking about how when you see severe economic downturns, or you see war and things like that, and you look back in history and you see all the art created because of that, all I kept thinking is, man, there are going to be some creatives making some unbelievable work, probably
Crazy
stuff
things.
we've never seen before. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for you and your generation, and what that means. So I'm really looking forward to see what you guys are growing. So what's your sort of fantasy? So let's say I'm Daddy Warbucks and I have an unlimited, finance budget for everything you want to do.
Yeah.
What is your fantasy in terms of creating content?
Fantasy. I can't really think long term at the moment, but
Sure, that's fair. That's fair.
short
Go to a
term,
restaurant and have dinner.
literally breathe the same air
Yeah,
as
go
someone outside
outside.
of my house. Short term this year, in terms of creating, I definitely want to get back out taking photos, because that was something I loved to do on my free
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Pre-COVID, like I was always hitting up friends, "Hey, let me take pictures of you.
yeah,
Let's
totally.
meet up with me. Let's go somewhere. Let's take some pictures." I loved doing that because I just love
Yeah,
capturing people's essence. So
yeah,
I'd hope to do some of that during the summer, but what I'm really looking to do in the fall is I wrote a short film. Probably, I would say I started it last August. I idolized it, or ideated. came up with the idea,
Uh-huh.
and I wrote it. I still could fix it up a little bit, but it's all about female, the divine feminine and coming into your body in your 20s, and kind of it's personal in the sense that it's everything I wanted to hear when I was a teenager that no one told
Cool.
me, and it's everything that I wanted to see in a piece of work when I was a teenager that I
Mm-hmm.
never saw. So I'd love to get a crew together and film that in the fall, with, COVID safety precautions and all of that. So that's something that I'm working on. That is kind of in the works. I've talked to a few of my USC friends and stuff, and what I love about school is that I now have a network of people that I'm like, oh, I need a cinematographer. Oh, I know a person. Oh, I need a director. Oh, this girl, I love her. Let me hit her up. So I'm
Yeah,
looking forward to starting that creative
that's cool.
process again.
That's exciting. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And what is it? And you said it's a short.
Yeah, it's a short 5 minutes.
Nice. Very nice. Very cool. Very cool.
Hmm.
And so what's we've been reading in the press about everything sort of opening up.
Right.
Um, what's the one food you're excited to go out and get?
Oh man, probably sushi, sugarfish,
Ah,
most likely. I've had some sushi in the pandemic, but I miss sugarfish. That used to be my
yeah,
favorite restaurant. So I'm
yeah.
excited to go. I really just wanna, yeah, I wanna go dine. I know like some people are already, and if you're vaccinated, that's very cool, good for you. But I'm just looking forward to being able to have that like community experience with a few friends at a restaurant and just enjoy the food and enjoy each other.
Hmm.
Like that's going to be really exciting to
Yeah,
re-experience.
yeah. I agree. I agree. I'm really looking forward to that too. The simple act of small group and having a dinner is just I didn't know how much we
Yeah.
missed that until it was literally taken away for a year. So. That's exciting. Well, Claire, I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me a little bit today, and I wish you well on all the projects. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if I can help in any way.
Yeah.
And I look forward to more podcasts. I'm very, very, very proud that you're doing that. There, it's really good work. And so,
Thank you.
best to you and your family. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.